Thalia Guardian of Thraben currently has 11 different printings, soon to be 12 actually with the release of Double Feature. This card here is worth $2.73 to buy on the Channel Fireball Marketplace right now. Not the Korean version, the English version, but I couldn't find an English one in my collection after digging. Here we have a Japanese foil of the card, which is the same set as the $3 one, but it's available at present time on Magic Card Market for around €80, which is around $90. And this is the beautiful World Cup qualifier version of Thalia, available for $61 on the Channel Fireball Marketplace, which is linked in the description below. Thalia Guardian of Thraben represents something really interesting about Magic the Gathering. She presents an ideal Magic card. She is simultaneously available as a tournament and competitive play staple at an affordable price. She is an affordable game piece, but is also a collectible chase rare in 2 or 3 of her promo or foil variants. If you didn't know, I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and you might know me from such videos as, is the MTG economy still shit? Well, spoilers, it probably is. And fetch lands are good for the game, actually. Not many people actually agree with me on that. Everyone seems to hate them, but I fucking love fetch lands. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about 2 very opposing forces within Magic the Gathering, 2 contrarian points. This is a conflict at the heart of the game. It is the collectible versus the playable. It is the cost you a shit ton of money on the secondary market versus accessibility. It is the arguably cosmetic versus functional, although sometimes the functional play pieces are also expensive due to supply, demand, and so on. Ultimately, I'm asking the question, is it possible for Magic to be a collectible trading card game and also be an affordable or accessible game? But before we dive into all that, in order to afford my Magic cards, I've got a quick message from today's sponsor. Skillshare is a huge online learning community featuring thousands of classes and members, all with the goal of helping you to take the next step in your creative journey. I've used Skillshare to get better at Photoshop to improve the thumbnails of my videos like the ones you see here, and I've also used it to learn the fundamentals of Adobe Premiere through some of their beginner classes because, well, I use Vegas at the moment, and I've been meaning to make the jump to Premiere one day. I'm just absolutely terrified. But Skillshare has lessened that fear and is helping me get ready to make that leap. But the Photoshop work has also really made my thumbnails just pop and allowed me to birth some truly cursed images too.
I'm the trash man.
Skillshare helps you to level up your skills and take that next step. It's ad-free, it has new premium classes launching each week, and it also features classes in Spanish, French, Portuguese and German. So whether it's MKBHD's script, shoot and edit classes for budding young YouTubers, or even something a little bit different like Emma Gannon's Finding Fulfillment in Your Creative Career, Skillshare makes an absolute bucket load of materials across a huge range of topics. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below will get a free month of Skillshare. So why not click that link below? You get to help support the channel and you get to give Skillshare a trial for free. Click the link in the description below, support the channel and check it out today. Thank you to Skillshare for continuing to sponsor my rather silly Magic content. I mentioned how in today's video we're going to talk about the affordability of Magic and the accessibility of Magic. And there's a couple of things I really want to touch upon before we get into the weeds of secondary markets, reprints and cost. Ultimately, Magic the Gathering is very accessible if you are willing to proxy or don't care about having official cards. You can write the name of a Magic card onto a basic land or a piece of card and put it in a sleeve and voila, you've got a proxy Lion's Eye Diamond or Taiga or Volcanic Island. I am super pro proxy because ultimately I just want people to enjoy and play Magic the Gathering. I would like Wizards to succeed in terms of selling product that is related to Magic the Gathering so that Magic the Gathering continues, because for the most part they do a good job. We just obviously, as passionate fans, moan about the bad stuff. But ultimately, if you cannot afford reserve list cards or the expensive staples in Commander, I really do promote proxying. Now proxying is something I'm going to do a video on in the near future, because proxying is not buying counterfeits or cards designed to dupe someone into thinking they're buying real Magic cards. There's a whole different kettle of fish. Secondly to all this, there is the idea that accessibility isn't really an issue because you can play with intro decks, budget decks, or just limited, a draft for example. I am coming at this as someone who is passionate about Cube, Commander, Legacy, Modern, and to a lesser extent the other non-rotating formats like Historic and Pioneer and such. I am not sitting here telling you that you can't just pick up a deck from your local store and then someone else picks up another deck and just jam them together. Not together, don't mix them, don't cross the streams, but I mean play any deck you pick up off a shelf and it's another deck. If by that measure Magic is accessible, then sure, yes, Magic is accessible just by playing random shit into each other. But the older formats are where I think Magic as a game system and as a game with so much history and iconic Magic cards that eventually you will want to play with. It has all this breadth to it. And just jamming intro pack decks against each other or having to play budget at a kitchen table because your friends aren't keen to proxy and they've all spent way more money on you and you're getting smashed now, none of those things seem very fun. It's a shame to restrict Magic the Gathering based upon your wallet, basically. It's a shame. If you're watching this and you're one of those people who's like, oh, wow, cards cost money, sorry. Well, fuck you. I'm not here to try and convince people that the cost of Magic cards shouldn't be really, really high, because any sane person should think that things should be accessible to their fellow human beings. People should want others to enjoy things too. I'm not here to get you out of your American capitalist propaganda and that shit. I recently talked in a video, which will be linked at the end of this video and in the cards, about Tiamat. Tiamat being a card from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms that is approaching $1,000 for one of the promo versions, whilst the normal Tiamat is just upwards of $10. And this made me ask the question of whether or not the future of Magic could be accessible in terms of keeping, you know, chase rares and chase mythics and chase staples below the $10 range, around $10 or lower for standard and other formats, whilst having the promotional, the promo, and the alternate cards be the ones that are chaseable in terms of collectibles. Have all the secondary market value be there, whilst the game pieces that are functionally available for you to play the formats that I'm talking about are relatively cheap. Is that a feature we could get? And honestly, when you look at Thalia, when you look at the price of a normal copy or the latest copy, because she was printed in Crimson Vow, one of her 12, 13 printings or whatever, it does make you think that this might be a possibility. The price of standard cards has been on the decline for a while. Firstly, we have the game growing year on year. We never get an actual numbers from Wizards of the Coast because honestly, they probably don't have a fucking Scoobies either, but it's safe to say more and more cards are opened each year if we accept the narrative that the game is growing in terms of player base. And on top of that, you've got Project Booster Fun. Every booster pack has multiple versions. You've got Draft, Set, Collector. There's so much product being opened if we believe the hype. And I'm inclined to. I don't think they're lying that Magic's doing well. But this, of course, would lead to an increase in demand. So why are standard staples going down in price? Whilst I don't follow standard all that closely, it does seem to me like Arena as a platform has had an effect on the overall cost of standard in many ways, with most rares and even mythics being worth fuck all. Hullbreaker Horror, for example, and Shadow Sanctum are two super playable cards from the latest set. A control finisher in standard in a blue 7-drop ludicrous Magic card. I really like this design. It's pretty powerful. And a dual land that fixes your mana base, albeit not as good as other duels, but it's cool to see new ground with that as well. Both of these are $7 each. Now, I haven't bought into a standard deck since Shadows over Innistrad rotated, so it's been a while if you don't include playing a bit of it on Arena, but I don't remember being able to pick up a dual land that was standard legal and sought after for less than $7. That's kind of crazy. So I am being a little bit anecdotal with this here, but let's look at some of the mythics, right, in Crimson Vow. There's only a few that break the $10 mark. Both Cultivator Colossus and Necro Duality are floating around the $20 mark, which is higher than I expected when looking at it. And that's Commander appeal, right, primarily for those two cards. And then we also have the casual favorite, like Chandra, commanding around $10. And then we've got another EDH Commander card in Toxicryl, or Toxicryl, I think I've misspelled this on my script here, commanding a price of around $16. Commander probably drives the price of cards in standard boosters more than standard does. It's very funny that I call them standard boosters. I guess, like Brian always says, everything is Commander now. And with Collector and Draft boosters bring us alternate frame, alternate art, extended border, and all sorts of other strange alternate frame treatments that I can't keep up with, the non-promo normal versions of these cards are less desirable than ever. I have complained in the past, and I will continue to say this because I do believe it, that when everything is special, nothing is. Think about the full art lands, for example, that we get in some sets. It's just not that exciting when every set has them. That said, though, it does make them accessible, right? There's one thing to talk about having the play pieces be accessible, like I've been saying, but to have the cosmetics also be relatively accessible to let some people, or most people, get hold of full art lands for relatively cheap, it stops the game from being this thing of like, I hope you were there to pick them up when they were cheap, otherwise you're fucked. And that's nice. I do approve, I do agree, I do enjoy that. That said though, some of these cards, certain versions of them, remember the Liliana Ward the Spark Planeswalker, for example, in with the Japanese art, they are more chaseable and more desirable than other cards coming in other types of boosters that are functionally the same. This means people, Commander players usually, are looking for the blingiest of bling, right? So the less bling ones get cheaper. So far we talked mainly about Standard, right? And Standard is a format that has its problems. problems. It is often either a lame duck format and a little bit stale, requiring either bannings to fix itself or a new set, or sometimes it's just racked with overpowered stuff in recent years, which needs bans. I've always found Standard to be a format that I never really gelled with after my first forays into constructed Magic. I soon moved on very quickly to other things like Modern, for example. It just gets boring very quickly in Standard. The problems with Standard are so severe that Wizards have taken to digitally errata-ing cards in a move that pissed off many people for many reasons. Standard now transitions to becoming Alchemy 1 month after each set release, although we've only had this happen once yet, so there's no precedent, but we're just going off what they've said. Every 4 weeks after a set is released, we will get digitally errata and new cards injected into the format to make it playable again. It's just so funny to say out loud. With MTG Arena, people move to playing Standard online, which means that the Standard cards are less desirable in paper too, meaning less demand, more suppliers we've already established, and thus the prices falling or being lower than they have been historically is to be expected. And then coming out of the global pandemic, or I say coming out of, transitioning back to a post-pandemic world, I guess, people moved to digital and webcam Magic to get their fix. And I was wondering if people would go back to Standard in paper, and then Wizards brought Alchemy in, and now it's a point where like paper Standard is kind of always going to be the lame duck when you've got Alchemy changing the cards 4 weeks in. It's pretty funny that I'm talking about accessibility here, and meanwhile the arena economy for people who aren't willing to grind the free-to-play is a messy, predatory trash fire that seems to only get progressively worse as time goes on. Meanwhile, the development team either stays dead quiet, or people in charge of it, like Blake, will claim they're going to give us a economy stream, and then just not, or not even give us any concrete dates. So I guess we'll just sat waiting, Blake, for when the arena economy stream is going to come, so you can, I don't know, stick a lampshade on it and pretend there's no problems at all, because your numbers that we can't see say otherwise. Anyway, so Standard cards are cheaper now. Even foil versions of the cards are cheaper than ever. Commander Chase Rare Unnatural Growth. It's the main reason it's got a price tag on it is because of Commander. But for example, this card ranges from around $4 for a normal, right up to $10 to $12 for a foil extended border one. The normal foil is only around $6 to $7 at time of writing, which suggests that general foil multipliers are down as well, right? We've known this for a while. People only stretch themselves for the blingiest of bling. The mid-range bling just doesn't demand the price tag that it once did. The normal foils used to be the most extremely exciting version of a Magic card, and now they're kind of middle of the road and boring. They're pedestrian by comparison to some of the stuff you get in collector boosters. Paper Standard was getting cheaper thanks to Project Booster Fun and the large amount of product getting opened and the more extreme and fanciful versions of cards. That was a really cool byproduct of getting draft, collector and set boosters. Some might think that $4 for an in-standard rare might be a bit too much still. I don't really know where to put the price tag of what a staple should be at. $4 is a lot for a piece of cardboard for one person and not much for another. Everybody's mileage may vary, everyone has a different amount of disposable income. Where we draw that line and where we say this is a good, like aim, we should aim for that, I don't know. I'm interested to see what people really think about that, if they're on board with the idea that Wizards could actively make Magic the Gathering cheaper to get into and more expensive to collect. And just to labour this point a little bit more, Memory Deluge is a card seeing play as a 2, 3 or sometimes 4 copies in blue-white control in Modern, and it's currently $6. This is fantastic. Meanwhile, in the same deck, we have a very expensive Mythic from recent time as well. 4 copies of Solitude, a pushed Mythic from a premium priced and non-standard run set. Solitude currently runs $50 a pop. Double that of even the most expensive card in Crimson Vow, and 10 times the price of cards like Memory Deluge or most of the dual lands from Crimson Vow. And that's the base, of course. Don't forget there are foils. There are borderless non-foils and there's borderless foils, which will set you back around $120. Let's unpack that a little bit here, shall we? Modern Horizons at present is still in print, or still available in stores, should I say. I believe it's still in print, at £6 a pack, £8 for a set booster, and fuck knows what a collector booster is, but it's some ludicrous amount. Crimson Vow, on the contrary, is £3 for a draft, $6 for a set booster, and $18 for a collector booster. It's actually fucking wild to me that some boosters that are over £15 still exist, and they went out there and they sold like cupcakes. But to be honest, cupcakes? Hotcakes? To be honest, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite there. I really enjoy cracking collector boosters because they're really fancy. It's like a premium cigar, and they have helped, as I've detailed. So I think it's wild, but they ultimately seem to have been a good thing. And there's other factors for why the Solitude is so fucking expensive. Like there's just far less Modern Horizons opened because it wasn't a standard set, it wasn't commonly drafted. like most standard sets would have been, with smaller allocations, I believe. Again, that's just anecdotal information or what the impression I've got. I don't actually have any hard figures for that, unfortunately. And it's clear that the premium price of a set like Modern Horizons has a profound effect on the cost of the cards in it. Solitude, that I mentioned, isn't even the most expensive card in the set either at present. The honour still goes to the Monkey, sitting happily around $85 right now, which is fucking crazy. And there's also another factor, right? Premium price product with mythics and powerful chase rares, sure. But demand is what drives price. We all know this. Now, I'm not going to say this for certain, because I can't prove it, but I do get the impression that even just Modern alone probably has more paper demand than Standard does now. With the things we've mentioned, right? Standard has become a lame duck. It's been an unpopular format for a while. They've struggled to make it exciting. Arena is taken away from it. No one's really playing a huge amount of paper right now out in the real world, or wasn't for the longest time because of COVID. So Standard is kind of drying up in paper. It's the Arena format now, and even that's dying or dead because it rebirths itself like a phoenix into alchemy every 4 to 8 weeks or some shit. And then you've got the small contingent, a fraction of what Modern would be, of legacy players. And of course there's Pioneer out there as well. Players playing non-rotating formats, needing paper cards because they can't play them on Arena because Arena won't endorse them. Obviously they're all available on Modo as well, and they live on Modo in terms of competitive communities as well. Imagine they're definitely online. But I think they may have a larger paper player base. Of course, all of this is dwarfed by Commander. I'm sure someone's sat there thinking that right now. That obviously factors in too, and Modern Horizons cards are desirable for Commander, but Ragavan isn't rocking a massive price tag because people want to play him as their Commander. So we've got a higher demand, the premium price tag on the product. Leads to grossly pumped staple prices like Ragavan here. Meanwhile, Thalia is a house. She's a powerful staple. She's a card that's not obnoxious and needs to be banned, but she's played in pretty much every format she's legal in, from just fringe stuff to being at the forefront of the legacy metagame the majority of the time. Thalia was great, and she's available for like $3 because they printed her into the ground, but her promo's still worth a pretty penny. It's the perfect Magic card. This is what Wizards of the Coast should be aiming for if they want formats like Modern or Pioneer to a lesser extent to be accessible to new players in the way that Legacy will never be because of previous mistakes on the reserve list. The problem is that collectability and chase hype for playables in Modern Horizons 2's rare slot and mythic slot is a desirable outcome for Wizards. This might sound a bit tinfoil hat, but having expensive rares ups the EV of a pack, and then that creates this idea that buying premium packs or collectibles of like £20 is worth it because you can get high valuable cards in there. It creates quite literally the chase experience, right? People cracking packs to find the chase rares. In addition to that, creating new powerful cards artificially rotates older formats and makes them obsolete. I've talked about this at great length, and one of our latest episodes about Dice Tray Removal was about this as well. So this means that you have to buy into new stuff and buy new packs and crack new packs, or buy singles that are cracked from those packs, and it keeps the wheels turning, I guess. And last but not least, so as they make more and more powerful expensive cards that are new in Modern Horizons, it creates reprint equity for the future, so they can sit on them for a while, not reprint them a little bit like they didn't do with Force of Negation, for example, and now they've got an expensive card they can put in a pack later on down the line to sell premium price product to us. The thing is, most of this is still durable with desirable cosmetics. Whether it be lottery cards like Masterpieces, or just more rare versions like Extended Border and Borderless and all this shit. I don't fucking... There's so many different treatments. I don't know all the fucking names, right? But those things are chase rares too. People were cracking War of the Spire boxes for Liliana. People were cracking Kaladesh from Masterpieces back in the day. Yeah, you don't need the chase element to be a fucking staple like Ragavan. In some ways, Secret Lair just proves this point. You can sell desirable reprints directly to the consumer if you put fancy fucking art or frames on them. So, with more avenues than ever, Wizards of the Coast have more tools than ever to put cards into the ecology of Magic the Gathering, into players' hands, through Secret Lair, through supplementary product, through standard sets, through multiple versions of the same fucking set. It's crazy, right? Look at Crimson Hunt and Midnight Vow. Set boosters, draft boosters, collector boosters, all the pre-con product shit as well. Multiple commander decks, and then fucking double feature, which is just a reprint of the set in black and white. It's crazy. And it's working for standard stuff, but they aren't really utilizing these tools and this methodology to make Modern or Legacy or even Pioneer or Historic more affordable. And it's a shame, because I think those formats, they're an important part of Magic. Unfortunately, I think that Commander is the cash cow that Wizards actually actively focuses on now. The other formats, the competitive 1v1, non-rotating or eternal formats, are not seen in the same way that Commander is, because Commander is huge. Commander made Dwarf Modern by 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 times the number of active purchasers, active consumers. It might even be more than that, maybe 20, maybe 50. When you start to throw those numbers around and you start to think, probably could be, you start to realise, well, I don't give a fuck about the other formats, right? So the too long didn't read of my thoughts on this all is that with a decent use of promos and alternate arts and alternate frames, alternate treatments, they could make those be the chase rares that people crack packs for. They could be the collectible alternative stuff that you buy at a high price. Meanwhile, they should print the playable staples into the ground, essentially. That's how I see it. That's my genuine, strongly held belief. So with that out of the way, I'm going to leave you with an idea. Something that I've talked about on Dice to Removal with Brian on one occasion, I think, and I've talked a bit about on Twitter, but what about a reserve list for art? The reserve list, if you didn't know what it was where they said a load of certain cards from a certain period of Magic would never get reprinted again to appease collectors. And what I'm saying is, never do that again, because it locked away guys' Cradle and Dual Lands and all sorts of good shit behind a supposedly binding legal promise, but that's all up in the air as well. I've got a video on that if you want to go check that out. But the point I'm getting at is that instead of doing that with actual functional game pieces, do it with arts or frame treatment. Birds of Paradise, as an alpha card, is worth so much money. Meanwhile, a $10 10th edition one exists, or an $8 Ravnica one exists. It just goes to show that if you make it unprintable again in that frame and that art or whatever, I guess technically, I don't even know if they technically reprint Birds of Paradise, it's not on the reserve list, right? But anyway, if you don't reprint it in that style, people will clamor for the old one, especially if it's rare as shit. In short, I truly believe collectability and secondary market cost should be focused and exist primarily in the cosmetic. Meanwhile, the functional should be cheap and accessible. That is the ideal. I want to say platonic ideal then, but I don't know if that fits. Platonic ideal of Magic? I don't know. Tell me in the comments below. Thanks for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it or found it at least interesting. If you've got any thoughts, drop them in the comment section below. If you want to check out Skillshare, it supports the channel. There's a link in the description below to get a free month as well. So give that a shot. In the meantime, if you want to see about Tiamat, there'll be literally a link you can click here right now to watch the Tiamat video. And that's it. The video is over. You can go now. Ta-ta for now. I'm just giving you a bit more time to click the link. Bye-bye.